Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the ordinary meeting of Council for the 17th of July 2024. I apologise that we are running considerably late, but there are a number of people who wish to be heard during the public forum. Could I remind all present that mobile phones must be switched off or put on to silent, and that this meeting is being webcast and recorded. Acknowledgement of country. Wingecarribee Shire Council acknowledge the Gundungurra and Tharawal people as the traditional custodians of this land we now call Wingecarribee Shire. I pay my respect to elders both past, present and emerging. I would also like to extend that respect to all First Nations people present here or watching today. Statement of ethical obligations. As Administrator, I will undertake the duties of the Office of Administrator in the best interest of the people of the Wingecarribee Shire Council area, and to act faithfully and impartially in carrying out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment. I am committed to the declaration of conflicts of interest in relation to items listed for consideration on the agenda or which are considered at this meeting in accordance with the Code of Conduct and the Code of Meeting Practice. Obviously there are no apologies for the meeting, but I welcome to the Chamber this afternoon the Acting General Manager, Mr Hamish McNulty. Adoption of minutes of previous meetings. I move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council held on 9 June 2024 be adopted as a true and correct record of the proceedings of that meeting and declare that carried. I further move that the minutes of the extraordinary meeting of Council held on 26 June be adopted as a correct record of the proceedings of that meeting and declare that carried. Acting General Manager, are there any declarations of interest?
Mr Administrator, I have one declaration of interest from the Acting Director Corporate and Strategy, Mr Kuzmanovsky, who's declaring a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest in relation to item 9.1. He describes the matter as a public speaker, Ryan Elphick, is a colleague he plays soccer with on the weekend. But he also notes the report being tabled has been compiled by consultants and approved by another directorate who's provided commentary on the financials based on the report and not influenced the decision on how to proceed or on the recommendation.
Thank you. There is one administrative minute which I circulated last night, in effect the General Manager's performance review for the last 12 months. I would move that recommendations 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 in that minute be adopted and declare that carried. We now move to matters of exception so that we can deal with matters that aren't called by the staff or myself and have them resolved. So accordingly, because we're going to play around with the order of items on the business paper, I'd move suspensions of standing orders. They'd be suspended to bring forward the following items for consideration and adoption by exception and declare that carried. We will now go through the matters I want to call and where I'm advised that the General Manager wishes to call a matter, I don't include those matters. That's a matter, the General Manager will do that in a minute. 9.7 Jerd Park Concept Master Plan, I'd like to call that. 9.10 Public Arts Policy, I'd like to call that. Smart Water Metering Update, I'd call that. 9.21, Project Rejuvenate Mossvale Civic Centre, internal refurbishment, I'd call that. 9.26, Part 3, Soma Avenue Barrel, I'd call that. 9.29, Investments Report, call that. General Manager.
Mr Administrator, the staff would like to speak to items 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, 9.1, 9.2, whoops, sorry,
9.1.
9.2, 9.3, 9.5, 9.9, 9.13, 9.14, 9.16, 9.17, 9.22, 9.25, and that's it, Mr Administrator.
I apologise. I hope people at home have been hearing me, or this has been turned off. 8.5, Planning Proposal, 35 of Elizabeth Street, Burradoo. 8.6, Voluntary Planning Agreements Policy for Public Exhibition. 9.4, Sports Ground Park and General Community Use Plan of Management. 9.6, Centennial Park Concept Master Plan Draft for Public Exhibition. 9.8, Local Orders Policy, Order 21, Draft for Public Exhibition. 9.11, CCTV and Portable Surveillance Cameras in Public Places Policy for adoption. 9.12, Traffic Concept Safety Mirror Policy for adoption. 9.15, Community Emissions Action Plan for adoption. 9.19, Public Toilet Strategy Update. 9.20, Section 138S, and approvals to carry out works on council property. 9.23, Mossvale Water Trunk Main Relocation and Upsizing, Gibbons Lytton to Berrima Road. 9.24, Wastewater Rise Main Upsizing, Elsmore Road, Bundanoon, tender evaluation. 9.27, Visitor Centre Volunteers Discussion Paper. 9.28, Monthly Financial Reports, June 2024. 9.30, Traffic Committee Agenda Minutes. 9.31, Audit Risk and Improvement Committee Meeting Minutes of the 6th of June. I don't think I've missed any. Declare all those recommendations carried. We now move to the first listed item for consideration, 8.1, the Draft Barrel Town Centre Master Plan. Acting General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Administrator. The Executive Manager Strategic Outcomes, Mr Killick, will introduce this item and respond to the comments made in the public forum.
Thank you, Acting General Manager. Mr May, fellow residents. I'm pleased to present the Bowral Town Centre Master Plan, which commenced in January 2023, as a holistic plan prepared in partnership with community and key stakeholders to set a clear vision and strategic direction for the Bowral Town Centre. This is about celebrating and enhancing Bowral's unique identity, that country charm, seasonal colour, and its standing as a commercial centre for locals and visitors. The master plan is underpinned by a spatial framework, strategic principles and prioritised implementation plan for delivery over the lifespan of the master plan. The plan was formally exhibited from January to March 2024, with feedback assisting with amending and refining the draft master plan. Some of the amendments include indicative placement of street trees, reinstating Wingecarribee Street West's one-way westerly direction, pedestrian refuge and access treatments, a Bowral-specific colour palette for shopfront upgrades, and wayfinding signage to make finding car parking easier. Longer-term opportunities are also considered, such as car parking augmentations for efficient and smarter use of spaces, backed up by the emerging Wingecarribee Integrated Transport Strategy that just came off public exhibition and is undergoing further review and refinement. Regarding the engagement, besides those the early workshops, the team also ventured out to the Bowral markets. We tested the master plan with the community reference panel, with joint workshop sessions, with all the reference panels, and online engagements were also undertaken. I therefore recommend the Bowral Town Centre Master Plan for adoption and endorsement of the Engagement Outcomes Report and supporting evidence base, so we can progress finally to the implementation phase of seeking funding and upgrading the public domain. Regarding some of the comments during the public session, this is the evidence base to reviewing our contributions framework. So the reference was made to the old Section 94, now known as the Section 711, the Section 12, as well as the VPA policy, which is part of this agenda as well. We need the evidence base to update those. I do accept our contributions framework needs work, our LEP needs work, and our DCP needs work. All of these require an evidence base to support revisions to these statutory and non-statutory instruments. And the Bowral Town Centre Master Plan is an evidence base. The Integrated Transport Strategy is an evidence base. So we're building the evidence base for evidence-based decision making. Regarding the heights, the building heights, so in Bowral, the building heights range from about 9 metres to 9, 10, 15 metres. What we're proposing is bringing the 10 metre building height areas currently at 10 metres to 12 metres to cater for changes in the National Construction Code about floor heights, as well as accommodate lift overruns up the top. So if we played with the floor space ratio controls, that would create bulkier buildings, and that was not within the scope of the recommendations made by the consultants who were appointed. It is a balance. So when we talk about protecting character, responding to concerns about bulk and scale, height and FSR need to be reconciled. So if we increase the floor space ratio, we'll most likely get bulkier buildings. So it is about balance and further refinements. Building height and FSR are statutory controls in the LEP, but we can have those qualitative controls in the DCP to, again, control bulk and scale with things like articulation of facades. Regarding Wingecarribee Street, the eastern side, so the Corbett Plaza side, I accept that's there are some concerns about street trees. These are indicative drawings. The detailed drawings come later, which goes into the millimetric detail about where the stormwater drains are, where the curbs, the gutters, the footpaths. But I think we can all appreciate Bong Bong Street particularly needs street trees. There's not a single street tree. I think there's one. There's not a single proper canopy street tree on Bong Bong Street, and it's a very popular part of the draft master plan, the proposal for more canopy street trees. So I think that addresses some of the comments made during the public forum. But to bring it back to contributions and implementation, how do we pay for this? Yes, the contributions framework needs work. In the meantime, we always have the VPA framework. The VPA the V stands for voluntary, so council has to be satisfied that it meets the test of public benefit, as well as the proponent being satisfied. So nobody can enter into a VPA under duress. But when it comes to car parking, we've put a figure out there. If car parking cannot be accommodated on site, our DCP is very clear that a VPA can be offered. So I think to sum up, it's about balance. It's about balance between height, floor space ratios, as well as some of the mechanisms to recoup infrastructure contributions, which are yet to come. Thank you.
So is it fair to say I was being approached by the owners of properties in Bowral CBD that they could not comply with the DCP in relation to parking on site? So what we're now offering is that's an indicative figure of what we believe that a car park is worth, and if you want to pay that to the council will then use that to potentially build another story on top of the northern end of the Station Street car park. We wouldn't be using it to offset the costs of the Station Street car park that's already been built.
No, that's exactly right. We've put a figure out there. It's with indexation, it's about $27,000 per car parking space. Again, these are based on negotiations. I do appreciate that not all sites can accommodate the required car parking, especially because most redevelopments develop beyond the traditional scale. So, and that's just to fit with modern construction standards, lifts, disability access. So most developers, most landholders do build beyond the existing footprint. We do make some accommodations, like I said, with that increased building height, 12 metres. But our DCP is quite clear when it comes to car parking. If it can't be accommodated on site, ideally underground, then that VPA pathway is there to fund future infrastructure like a multi-deck car park on Station Street, separate to the on-grade car park that's already there.
And that potential is highlighted in the plan that's about to be adopted.
It is, yes. There's
Thank
a massive
you.
star on it.
In relation to 8.1, the draft Bowral Town Centre Master Plan, I would move the officer's recommendation 1, 2 and 3 as outlined on page 7 of the business paper and declare that carried. Acting General Manager, 8.2, Bowral South New Living Area.
Mr Administrator, Mr Killick will introduce this item also.
Thank you, Acting General Manager. Mr May. The Bowral South Precinct was declared a new living area in the adopted local housing strategy in 2020, and this was reaffirmed in mid-2021 in full view of site merits and known constraints. The site is bound by Eridge Park Road and Kangalin Road, down to the Wingecarribee River and its eastern edge at Bong Bong Racecourse, strategically forming the long-term town boundaries of Bowral. It's important to remember we're facing undeniable demographic change. That is, we're ageing and we have a modestly increasing population. That requires careful planning, including town planning, to accommodate 50% of future Southern Highlanders within the existing town and village forms, and the remaining 50% across the 6 identified adopted new living areas. Bowral South is one of them. The expectation is that all new living areas are to be master planned, backed up by due diligence studies, to ensure best practice outcomes in terms of built form, urban design, landscape and infrastructure upgrades, and particularly infrastructure funding to ensure Shire-wide benefits. Our strong commitment to strategically led land use planning framework has served us well over these recent years. This Bowral South New Living Area Master Planning Project was initiated with funding from the Department of Planning's Regional Housing Branch to ensure a single, cohesive master plan for the entire 300 hectare precinct. This is to ensure the best built form and infrastructure outcomes, especially given the land ownership is across 12 separate landowners with diverse views and motivations. We appointed project consultants Maker ENG after a comprehensive procurement process. With work commencing in mid-2023, Council has also commissioned a separate retail needs assessment to better understand the economic viability and location of the village centre to serve existing residents across East Bowral, Burradoo and the emerging Bowral South New Living Area. The master plan has been informed by what I like to call the sciences and art of town planning. The due diligence studies, urban designer facilitated community design workshops and public information sessions presented by yours truly about the Shire-wide picture, our master planning framework and the land use plans that were emerging back in March and April 2024. Since then, the draft master plan has emerged with considerations for flood planning, ecological constraints and opportunities, strategic heritage assessment, and a sustainability strategy. There are over 20 attachments, numbering about 500 pages, to this report, and they're also all available on Participate Wingecarribee right now. For us, the highlights are a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to open up the Wingecarribee riverfront as public open space for recreation and environmental conservation for native flora and fauna. Parks and open spaces along riparian corridors or creeks. A village centre we've nicknamed the Botanic Village Centre on the corner of Eridge Park Road and Kangalin Road. And diverse housing typologies to cater for the needs of our ageing and growing population. A project progress update was presented to the 15th of May Council meeting and the local planning panel. More recently, the full package, the draft master plan, draft servicing strategy and due diligence reports were all referred to the local planning panel for advice. The panel provided advice on the 28th of June 2024, where several community representations and pre-exhibition submissions were made and considered. The panel recommended proceeding to exhibition with the full suite of documents tabled today and provided advice about further additional work in relation to flood planning to inform the planning proposal stage for gateway determination in the future. The panel also highlighted the draft master plan is informed by a strategic heritage assessment, and any representations about Aboriginal and European heritage can be considered during the community consultation stage. There's quite a process yet to come. We're still at least 12 months away from requesting rezoning with a planning proposal supported by additional work such as the flood impact risk assessment to add another layer of due diligence and confirm and refine our flood planning levels. Consultations with state agencies and state-owned statutory corporations is continuous and an iterative process with detailed feedback expected as part of this proposed formal public exhibition period. I therefore recommend we proceed to formal community consultation with the proposed public exhibition period of the draft master plan and full suite of documentation. I can address some of the comments that emerged. Many of them are very familiar of the last 6 to 9 months, as well as representations made at the panel. Regarding flooding, our flood study is very recent, from 2022, and it considers all plausible scenarios, including the PMF, and we've undertaken added due diligence by commissioning an event review report to consider more recent storm events. That being said, the department, the planning department, keeps issuing new guidelines, new planning circulars, and they did so over the past 6 to 9 months. The most recent was March with that planning circular. So in response to that, we've identified a flood impact risk assessment to form part of the supporting additional work for the planning proposal that supports the rezoning of the site. That's at least 12 months away, the initiation of the rezoning request. And even after the gateway determination, that's what the department calls it, which is essentially a provisional green light, there's another 12 months on top of that at least. So there's years, plural, worth of work, and it starts with a master plan, a draft master plan that's put out there into the public domain for all to see and comment. Again, on flooding, I do appreciate the representations made by Ms Hanrahan representing Headlam Road residents. They are reasonable, intelligent arguments. We do acknowledge the long-standing representations from Headlam Road residents about cumulative stormwater impacts. We've met with the representative group and we've made some commitments for short-term action with the assets branch manager. For example, in the interim, council will investigate to see if there are any opportunities to reduce the readiness in which Headlam Road floods. However, it is acknowledged that it cannot be made entirely flood-free without a full reconstruction and raising of the road. That's just a reality of being in a rural shire where over 30% of our rural roads are flood-prone, and Headlam Road is known to be flood-prone. It's on the floodplain. That being said, we're looking at immediate, short, medium and long-term responses, as well as any nexus with Barrel South for off-site impacts, which will be addressed with that flood impact risk assessment. Some of the comments about putting people in harm's way, the PMF, the flood planning level, the statutory flood planning level is the 1 in 100 year flood level plus half a metre buffer on top of that. So when we look at diagrams that are already out in the public domain, which are already published on Participate Wingecarribee, those pre-development flood diagrams do not take into account that 0.5 metre freeboard or buffer on top of the 1 in 100 year level. I do appreciate that flood planning is complex. It's a very complex, hydraulic engineering is a very complex subset of civil engineering. Nonetheless, it is our job to make everything plain English and accessible to all. On the matter of heritage, I do lament the adversarial tone of some of the representations about strategic outcomes, but we are driven by facts. And the facts is that we responded to Mr Morgan on the 24th of June 2024 and again on the 9th of July 2024, requesting further information in relation to heritage, as well as some of the documentation that was referred to. All reports that were commissioned as part of this work are public. I have a very transparent style in that I publish everything on Participate Wingecarribee well before it even comes to council. I call it Nordic level transparency. It makes everybody nervous because everything's transparent, but everything's out there. The report that was referred to was a landowner initiated archaeological report. We don't own that report, so it's not our place to make that public. And there are cultural sensitivity matters to consider because it will be detailed in what it identifies. We need to remember that the heritage report, the strategic heritage assessment, is just that. It's a strategic heritage assessment. The detail comes at later stages, and if Heritage New South Wales requires that, we will need to respond to those statutory requirements. Lastly, not everything can be done at this stage. There's work that comes into play at the planning proposal, pre-gateway stage, post-gateway stage, and the DA stage when it comes to archaeological investigations, particularly First Nations heritage. In regards to European heritage, we already know that the main European heritage consideration is the proposed heritage listing of Harby Estate, which went to the planning panel yesterday. I think that covers all the comments that were raised during the public forum.
As you say, two of the speakers indicated that you're not making all information available. You are.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Ms Hanrahan indicated there have been other developments in Moss Vale where the retention ponds haven't been built to, I don't know whether you're saying haven't been built properly, or do you know anything about that? Or
That's a reference to the cumulative development impact from places like Farnborough Drive, some of those large lot residential subdivisions. They were the example of piecemeal sort of development and where it wasn't a single master plan. What we're proposing this time is a single cohesive master plan for the entire Bowral South Precinct, 300 hectares. We need to remember, prior to this being initiated, every landowner was coming to us separately. Imagine 12 separate master plans, 12 separate rezonings, 12 separate stage DAs. It's a nightmare. That is why this process was commissioned for that cohesive response. I am very sympathetic to the arguments in regards to Headlam Road. It is the lowest point, capturing overland flow from Moss Vale side as well as the Bowral side, but it is on the floodplain. We need to remember that both the road and the paddocks are on the floodplain. Luckily, all the homes are on mounds higher up and they don't flood, but fundamentally the paddocks and the road are on the floodplain, and the road is essentially designed to flood because it's essentially at the level of the high water mark.
So the small subdivisions that the lady was talking about are in effect what I call spot rezonings.
I'm not sure if they were rezoned, but they were, I guess, developed without really speaking to each other. I presume they were separate developers, separate landowners, and again, these are some of the legacy issues that we've inherited, and we've said we're not going to make those mistakes ever again.
Yeah. Would it be opportune in the report to have it be noted the council will be preparing a flood assessment in accordance with PS 24001 as part of its statutory obligations, just to give more confidence. In the submissions I read, there's a lot of talk about this site floods. Well, I think that people understand that sections of the site which aren't being developed now do flood. Would it be worthwhile putting that in there?
Yeah, that was a recommendation of the panel, and I agree with it. It only came out in March, and prior to that, I think it was July last year, there was something else that came out. Again, it's an evolving situation where the focus is on flooding, and that's because we're in a La Nina year where we've had multiple storm events. In a few years, our focus will go back to bushfires once El Nino starts. But what I'm trying to say is I have no issue with that being part of the resolution. It was a recommendation of the panel. Just in regards to Bowral South, it's important to understand what you're reading or what you're looking at. I say this with love and respect. We can't just look at the pretty pictures. We have to read the full flood study and the water cycle management strategy. Yes, part of the site is flood prone. That was known back in 2020. It was known in 2021. It's confirmed by the lived experience. Paddocks flood because they don't have drains. There's overland flow or flash flooding. The solution to that is infrastructure. The solution to riverine flooding is not building on it, and we're proposing not to build on the floodplain affected by riverine flooding. So again, we've been very cautious here, and the planning circular adds another layer of due diligence, which gives rise to the flood impact risk assessment.
I'm told by people that the council's contributions plans leave a lot to be desired, and you may or may not want to comment on your predecessors, but that's totally up to you. But in relation to when you marry all the reports we're getting done, including the sports one, we need evidence-based to ensure that when they're attacked through the courts, that they stand up to that scrutiny. For too long, this council, well, not the council, the community, has missed opportunities. You've only got to look at Bowral East, where there's wonderful open space and walkways, etc. You look at Almerton, I don't know what benefit the Shire has got out of that. What we're trying to do now is take a strategic approach to development and opening up of these new land release areas. There's going to be 6 over a long time, but this is the first one. What do you see as opportunities out of Bowral South for Shire residents generally?
It's a really good question. And again, it's the very reason why we're following this single master plan cohesive approach. The master plan informs a future site-specific development control plan, but also a contributions plan to capture all the infrastructure needs, not just for the precinct, but beyond its immediate environs as well as Shire-wide. So the mistake we've made in the past is that our contribution plans have not been up to scratch. Again, I won't speak to about my predecessors. I'm sure they did the best under testing circumstances, but contributions are complex. Developers need to pay their way, and it's a model of user pays and pays for infrastructure beyond the precinct. So in the case of Bowral South, it's not just about roads and parks within Bowral South, it's also about road upgrades beyond the identified area. So the Funston Street roundabout, for example, the roundabout and duplication of lanes on the corner of Erridge Park Road and Kangaloo Road. It's intersection upgrades with Mossvale Road, Erridge Park Road and Mossvale Road, again, all part of the traffic study. It's money for the sewer treatment plant upgrade, it's money for reticulated water, and of course, aquatic centres, social infrastructure and sporting infrastructure. If we don't get the contributions framework right, we're not capturing enough money through monetary contributions as development occurs. And Bowral South, by our projections, it'll go from the late 2020s, 2027, 2030s, 2040s, even early 2050s. So we're planning for the middle of the century here. And again, our population is increasing, we're also ageing, and all that infrastructure needs to be paid for, partly by developments like the Bowral South New Living Area. So if I did a back of the envelope calculation based on our existing sort of contributions framework, we can probably capture $80–90 million worth of infrastructure. That could be well beyond 100 million if we can get that contributions framework right.
And so now the council is doing this work and not the landowner or the developer. That is taken into account when these lots are traded, when they will be traded further down the track, and the council won't have the bun fight like we've had at Almerton, which was a case study was done before you arrived by Chief Planner King, Jeff King, who in effect said this was a prime example of how not to do it.
Yeah, we've had a lot of examples of what not to do. We are following best practice, and most recently the Secretary of the Department of Planning applauded us for this best practice approach, and I think that's the highest level of endorsement.
Okay, well look, this is a long journey, and this is just another stage of that journey to make sure it's all done properly. Hey, that's okay, having technical problems. It's probably getting tired. Well, in addition to adding about the flooding, I also want to add a clause in there, which I've already given, that during the public exhibition period, advertisements and educational material be provided in the local print media for at least 2 weeks and 2 print editions, as well as local radio and online social media engagements. Not everybody has social media, and I think it's important that the council follow a bit of traditional media as well. And obviously you're going to pay for that, but to me it's a good investment. And if we can, I wrote something myself about the flooding. Further be done in relation to flooding, in particular the flooding assessment, and to comply with the As part of council's statutory obligations. I think some people think the council just thinks some of this stuff up. Okay, in relation to item 8.2, Bowral South New Living Area, I'd move the officer's recommendation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as printed and 6 as printed, and declare that carried. We now move to the Southern Highlands Innovation Park, 8.3, Acting General Manager.
Mr Administrator, this too will be introduced by Mr Killick.
Busy man.
Thank you, Acting General Manager. Mr May, it does warm my heart that people are interested in strategic outcomes projects. The emerging strategic work on the Southern Highlands Innovation Park Master Plan, Governance Strategy and Supporting Strategic Positioning Paper have reached a significant milestone to now proceed to public exhibition. The SHIP, the Southern Highlands Innovation Park, affectionately known as the SHIP, is a regionally significant precinct over 1,000 hectares of existing zoned land for employment generating land uses, stretching from the northwestern edge of Moss Vale to New Berrima. The precinct provides an opportunity to attract sustainable and innovative industries and become a major employer and economic driver for our Shire. This work builds on the master planning process from 2021 with funding from the Department of Regional New South Wales for council to appoint a nationally recognised consultant team including Architectus, SGS Economics and Astrolab Group. The draft master plan proposes we attract industries that leverage off our regional advantages, including agribusiness, agri-innovation, research and training, including attracting a university facility, such as an incubation hub, as well as at high-tech advanced manufacturing. The SHIP is anchored, excuse the pun, by advanced manufacturing, a Garvan Institute biotech facility, a data centre, and of course the cement works and various employment generating land uses. Council's Livestock Exchange, New Animal Shelter and Resource Recovery Centre are all within the Innovation Park. The Innovation Park could be a region shaping project. It provides a great basis for attracting infrastructure dollars from the state and federal governments for trunk infrastructure, particularly the Berrima Road deviation and of course the Moss Vale bypass. The Innovation Park work has been informed by workshops, thorough economic analysis, a rigorous and iterative design process to ensure the Innovation Park is responsive to the unique Southern Highlands landscape. I therefore recommend we proceed to public exhibition to capture further feedback and refine the master plan and ultimately inform our LEP, DCP, contributions framework and economic development work to attract the right employers to our Shire. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't picture where Mr Anstey's suggesting that corridor goes, but he's going to make a submission. Council officers don't have a mortgage on knowledge, and he may be onto something there. Anything that would save going up and over that railway would save considerable expense. So you can look forward, I think, to getting that submission. Like the previous matter, I would like to add number 5, that during the public exhibition period, oh, no, you've already got it that. So, as you had, I'm sorry. Just pick up the one from the previous one. It's just, I have this thing about everybody thinks everyone's on social media when they're not. Okay, in relation to item 8.3, I'd move the officer's recommendation 1, 2, 3, 4 and the new 5 and declare that carried. We now move on to the review of low density residential development controls. Acting General Manager.
Mr Administrator, once again Mr Killick will introduce this item.
Thank you, Acting General Manager. Mr May, The Low Density Residential Development Control Plan Review, or DCP Review, is an important piece of work to update our development control plan to ensure our controls are up to date, responsive to regulatory and market conditions, and considers local character of our low density streetscapes. This review supports Council's transition to a better place-based planning framework, and along with the recent medium density study that was adopted last month, we're working toward a next generation development control plan that is easy to use, diagrammatic, and employs best practice planning controls to get the balance right between development and sensitive to streetscape character. Public exhibition of this low density DCP review occurred in May 2024, with feedback given, detailed responses in this report, and refinements in the draft DCP review. This matter was also referred to the new planning panel on the 5th of July 2024, and that advice has been considered along with representations made on the day. I therefore recommend the low density DCP review be adopted, the relevant changes made to the low density chapter of existing DCPs, along with adoption of the compliance checklist and DA submission checklist to assist customers in lodging DAs. I can respond to some of the comments that were made. Pardon me, I'm still recovering from COVID, but I'm not infectious. Some of the representations made about seniors housing, service departments, other typologies, they just weren't within the scope of the review. It wasn't based on zoning, it was based on typology. So it was single dwellings, secondary dwellings, granny flats, tennis courts, pools, those low density, which form the bread and butter DAs that come in to this council, especially tennis courts and swimming pools, knowing it's the Southern Highlands. But again, it's about the typology of development, not the zoning. And I do take the advice given by Mr. Anstey around seniors housing. It just wasn't part of the scope. Yes, there is a confusion between the seniors housing and the SEP and seniors housing and the LEP. Our R2 zone permits seniors housing in the LEP, so it is quite a permissible land use table. That being said, those refinements, it's coming. It's part of that next generation DCP review. I'm calling it the next generation DCP review, and hopefully we can get it down from 3,800 pages to something more reasonable.
Thank you. In relation to item 8.4, review of low density residential development controls, I'd move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 44 of the business paper, 1, 2 and 3, and declare that carried. General Manager, Aquatics Plan and Regional Aquatic Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. This item will be introduced by the Manager of Assets, Sean Robinson.
Thank you, General Manager. Mr. Mayor, the purpose of this report is to seek Council's endorsement for the Aquatics Plan, the business case for Regional Aquatic Centre, and the business case for Multi-Purpose Indoor Sporting Centre, for them to be placed on an extended period of public exhibition and community engagement. And so, to be clear, the recommendation of the report is not for Council to accept and endorse the plan and the business cases and the proposed outcomes, but rather to just place them on public exhibition and so the public record, to ensure that community engagement and public comment can be made and transparency can be ensured throughout the whole process. These draft documents have been prepared as a direct outworking of the strategic directions detailed within the Community and Recreation Facility Strategy, which was adopted by Council at the Council meeting 18th of October 2023. The documents are largely a technical assessment from an industry expert, and so therefore community engagement has not been completed as part of the preparation of these draft documents as of yet. But it is acknowledged, given the wide-reaching impacts of the proposed outcomes of the plan and business cases, significant community consultation and engagement is required in order to assist the new council to be able to make an informed determination on the matter in relation to the final endorsement and determination of the documents. The proposed outcomes of the draft plan and business cases are of significant community impact, but the context within which these outcomes are being proposed, I believe, does need to be understood and acknowledged, of which I think there's three main. The first one being a duplication in provision for our aquatic facilities. So Moss Vale War Memorial Aquatic Centre, in terms of the catchment for that facility, it has significant overlap with Bowral Swimming Centre, and it also extends into the rural communities to the south. And then with Bowral Swimming Centre itself, it has significant overlap both with obviously Moss Vale, but also with any aquatic facility that would be in the north. So that is to the extent that the expected catchment for Bowral would be fully encapsulated by the catchments for Moss Vale and of a facility in Mittagong. The second point is that notwithstanding, there are still gaps in provision for our aquatics portfolio. As noted within the community recreation facility strategy, there is a desire in the community for increased year-round swimming opportunities. And there is also the lack of a modern, accessible, dedicated competition venue for all aquatic sports, that being a quality outdoor 50-metre swimming pool. So that's the gaps in provision despite the duplication in provision. And then the third one is impending capital renewal. So both Bowral and Bundanoon pool facilities are nearing end of life, with the concrete shells of those facilities 55 and 65 years old, both of which are beyond the 50-year life expectancy that's adopted within the State of Aquatic Facility Infrastructure Report prepared by the Royal Life Saving Australia. That document also states that an outdoor pool cannot be replaced for any less than $10 million, although given recent cost escalation, it'd be reasonable to think that would be more in the order of 12 to 13. And both of those sites also have multiple bodies of water, as well as outdated supporting infrastructure. So, therefore, there is significant investment required for both of those facilities to ensure continued operation in the near future. In light of those three, I think in light of that supporting context, the aquatics plan and the business cases conclude for each of the facilities. I'll go through the actions as relates to the 4 aquatic facilities. It concludes that Moss Vale War Memorial Aquatic Centre is to continue to operate and it to be ensured that all capital and maintenance requirements are met. It also recommends that a regional aquatic facility is constructed in Mittagong, and I'll speak to more of that soon. It does recommend that for Bowral Swimming Centre, that given the impending capital renewal requirements and that its catchment is entirely overlapped by Moss Vale and Mittagong, it's recommended that upon opening of a new regional facility in Mittagong, that Bowral Swimming Centre ceases operation. The repurposing of this land would be subject to a separate analysis, but its replacement with a play space and park assets would be seen as a good option in the first instance. Similarly, Bundanoon Swimming Centre, given the impending capital renewal requirements, but also just simply the financial unsustainability of its catchment size, it is also recommended that upon opening of a regional facility, it ceases operation. I note the comments, and it is acknowledged within the aquatics plan that for the catchment size, Bundanoon Pool does see a good level of attendance that would be expected for its catchment. But the fundamental point is that it is a catchment that cannot financially sustain a standalone aquatic pool facility. The council's subsidy for that facility is in the order of 3 times that of the other aquatic facilities in the Shire. Similar to Bowral, the repurposing of that land would be the subject of a separate analysis, but again, its incorporation with the adjacent play space and wider reserve would be seen as a good option. So looking closer at the regional aquatic facility proposed for Mittagong, the business case considered 3 locations, and through a multi-criteria analysis, considering both internal and external factors, it concludes that the Mittagong Oval Precinct is the preferred site. similar. A business case was completed for a multi-purpose indoor sporting facility to serve the northern part of the Shire. It considered 3 locations, and again, through a multi-criteria analysis, the Mittagong Oval Precinct was identified as the preferred site. The co-location of these facilities, combined with an upgrade and reorientation of Mittagong Oval, as well as the existing facilities of the PCYC and Highlands Golf, would create what can be described as a Mittagong sporting precinct. It is difficult to estimate the construction cost at this stage. However, considering similar projects and site constraints, it's estimated that those facilities could not be delivered for anything less than $85 million. This capital cost does not feature in Council's long-term financial plan, nor is it currently reflected in the current developer contributions plan. And it's also acknowledged that the construction of a facility of this magnitude would not be viable without significant financial support from both federal and state governments. The ongoing operational costs of the precinct could also not be accommodated within Council's operational plan and budget without being offset with a reduction in the aquatics portfolio and maximising the revenue opportunities that the facility would present. It is therefore recommended that if endorsed, subsequently endorsed by the new council, that the project would proceed to a master plan and concept design for the Mittagong Sporting Precinct. That would then enable strong grant funding applications to be submitted, as well as its inclusion within an updated developer contributions plan, both of which would be the primary funding strategy for the proposal. To speak to some of the comments that were raised during the public forum prior, bear with me, there was quite a few. In relation to Southern Highlands water polo, I think I would be more appropriate to probably await the submission of what those detailed comments were, but largely noted. As I mentioned, there has been no consultation as part of the preparation of the business cases and aquatics plan. They are in essence technical reports, but now is the time for the community engagement, the consultation, and for all of that to then be to collect all the information required so that the new council can make an informed decision. Note the request for an information session to be held for the community and facilities recreation strategy for the actions identified and progress to date. We did hold an information session back on the 25th of March earlier this year to go through the identified actions from the community rec facility strategy, as well as the next steps involved for those. But as detailed within the council report, it is recommended that we hold further community drop-in sessions to discuss the proposal and receive feedback through those methods. In relation to the comments from Moss Vale Basketball, there was a couple. In terms of number one, the purpose of these documents is to progress the actions that have been adopted as part of the community and recreation facility strategy, not to revisit the actions. And so in terms of concerns over whether a multi-purpose indoor centre is better provided in the southern part of the Shire as opposed to the northern part of the Shire, I note the concerns, but these documents have been prepared on the basis of the resolutions and the directions adopted to date. They're not looking to revisit what those decisions were. And so in the community recreation facility strategy, the strategic direction is for the investigation of a multi-purpose indoor sporting facility in the north, and so that has been the subject of the business case. In relation to the wording of the council report for the potential facilities, my intention was for all the facilities to be labelled as potential because there is no endorsed project for the Mittagong Sporting Precinct. Be that the multi-purpose centre or the regional aquatic facility, they are all proposed potential projects. The comments around the orientation of Mittagong Oval and its, if it is to be reorientated east-west, agreed. East-west orientation for sporting fields is not a preferred alignment. I believe the primary purpose of that footprint is such that the senior and the junior fields would be rejigged or reorientated such that they no longer extend beyond what the dead ball line is of the senior field. I believe that can still be achieved without having to go full east-west orientation, and that can just be with a shuffle of the junior field and the senior field, because the primary purpose is to then create a bit more space for those additional facilities. That's all I got.
Look, in my view, this council has lacked political maturity. Hence, you haven't got these facilities because it's become popularity contests. And just because a place is popular by virtue of history doesn't mean it will pass a legal interrogation as to a contributions plan. And that's why I'm going to put this on public exhibition. This is not about a popularity contest. This is evidence-based, and the community needs to understand that. Now, whether it becomes an election issue, I don't really know, but I will be very vocal on the fact that this is merit-based. This is where the experts say it should go. Now the community should have their say whether they agree with the experts, but they've got to balance that up against whether the contributions plans are interrogated all the time and illegal, and particularly when we are talking about such massive land releases, and they are big land releases over many years. So that's why I'm going to put it on public exhibition, and I want to add the clause again about press and radio onto the bottom of that. And also I did ask Sean earlier today whether he could extend the recommendation to make it very clear in the recommendation what the council is putting out for public consultation. Having said that, there's a long way to go with this, and those who would want to introduce the potential closure of Bowral and Berrima as an election issue, I think would be misguided, because it will be funded by developer contributions in something that's not going to happen until well after the next election, in my view. Then the council has to build its case in opening these lands to get grants from federal or state government. And this is the way you get the grants. You don't just stick your finger in the air like the former council did, you know, for Mossvale bypass and say it was going to cost X when it's been X multiplied by 10. And now that there is maturity in what's going on, I think that's being repaid by the state government, who have now given us $10.8, I think you said, $million, because they can see that the council is being realistic in its approach. So I'm satisfied to put this on public exhibition. I do think that there should be a couple of education sessions along the way for people to get a better feel for what's is planned. But this is the way that you get these facilities. You just don't wish for it and it won't happen. You've got to have the foresight, and that's what's the new strategic approach. And again, this is all outlined in that report that the General Manager did some months ago, where this is all just fitting in to the equation. So having said that, with the expanded recommendation A, B, C, and then 2, I would declare that carried. Next one is 9.21A Rainbow Road, Mittagong, variation of lease. General Manager.
Mr Administrator, this report be introduced by the Acting Director Strategy and Resourcing, Mr Kuzmanowski.
Thank you, Acting General Manager. On 21 February 2024, Council resolved to place the requested variation to Clause 28 of the registered lease to Illawarra Local Aboriginal Land Council on public exhibition. The requested changes related to establishment of a local Aboriginal advisory group, with the proposed variation placed on exhibition from 21 March to 19 April 2024. During that time, 12 submissions were received. Many of the submissions provide a detailed history of comments on matters unrelated to the proposed variation of the lease. Whilst council standard process in relation to submissions is to provide them in full as an attachment to the report, some of the comments that were made as a part of the submissions were considered inappropriate to publish in accordance with council's normal process, particularly as some of the statements could be deemed defamatory in nature. As a consequence, a decision was made to deviate from this normal process by providing a summary from the relevant matters raised in each submission and for staff to provide responses to those items only. The changes to Clause 28 will ensure that the Illawarra Local Aboriginal Land Council can implement the obligations of the lease and will be compliant with the deliverables of the lease. This report recommends Council to adopt the proposed changes to Clause 28 of the lease as outlined in the report with the following amendments to the recommendation as required. Replace 2 recognised and accepted elders from the Aboriginal community from the existing resolution to be updated to read 2 Gundungurra elders or their nominated representatives if they cannot attend. This will ensure there is Gundungurra representation on the local Aboriginal advisory group and ensuring the terms of the lease can be complied with. Thank you.
Thanks. There's nothing you wanted to say in relation to comments made by the people who presented?
Generally speaking, they were covered in the submissions, so they were addressed in addressing the resolutions of addressing the submissions of the report. So they were predominantly not related to the matter that was tabled today at council.
I'd make an observation in relation to not so much the presentations, but the attachment, the summary, where it says on several occasions that I refused to meet with the local Aboriginal groups in relation to this matter. I think that those people should speak to the author of the letter that I received to find out the facts of the matter. You're amending your recommendation.
That is correct, yes.
Have we heard anything? Look, I genuinely believe that the Illawarra Land Council are the best people to manage this site. I hear what the local Aboriginal groups are saying, but under all legislation, the Aboriginal Land Council is really the group that we should be dealing with. But on top of that, I haven't given up and I won't give up, and I hope the new council won't give up on what is happening with the money they've got out of Berrima Jail. We still don't have an answer, and unless there's something...
No, that's correct. Still haven't had a response to that. Thank you, Mr. Minister.
But it is being chased up all the time by council officers, and as I understand it, it's being considered by the Land Council in its negotiations, and I would hope it's just a great pity that the state government dropped us and the Berrima community totally out of the sale of the Berrima Jail, because maybe we could have been able to influence to get some of that money for the Mittagong Centre. But I still think there's an opportunity, and at least we're being listened to, and I take heart from what Adele Hislop said, that they are working also to try and improve that centre. It's stale. It needs a lot of money spent on it to make it a place where not only Indigenous members of the community, but where residents generally, the Wingecarribee, can be proud of it. And there needs to be more done there. So can you just point out exactly where you are making your change?
So there we go, just on the screen there. So we've just replaced that.
So the Aboriginal representation consists of
2 Gundungurra elders or their nominated representatives if they cannot attend. Previously read, 2 recognised and accepted elders from the Aboriginal community.
Okay. And that's following from the submissions you've had and what was... Okay. In relation to item 9.2, 1A Rainbow Road, Mittagong, I'd move the officer's recommendation 1 as amended in the bottom of it, and 2, and declare that carried. Next item is the quarterly delivery program. General Manager.
Mr Administrator, Mr Kuzmanowski has a presentation on this item to give.
Thank you, Acting General Manager. Okay, welcome everybody. Oh, there we go. Just an overview from the last quarter. So essentially we do this every quarter to advise the community what we've been working on in achieving our operational plan. This being the June quarter, the final quarter of the financial year. It's a wrap up quarter. So what you'll see is an overview and a highlight. There will be some figures that are presented in this presentation that are subject to year-end processing, so they are draft in nature. They're as accurate as what our ledgers read at this point in time. Just wanted to caveat that. So essentially we had 226 priority actions that we were going to deliver this financial year. Of those, 160 priority actions have been completed. 58 are continuing into the new financial year, noting that some of these priority actions are linked to multi-year projects and to be completed in the first part of the 24-25 financial year. 8 actions were put on hold during the year. In terms of key deliverables and highlights from our leadership theme delivered during the quarter include the opening of the Emergency Operations Centre contained within this building across the hallway in May 2024. The EOC will ensure a rapid, coordinated response during emergencies, fulfilling recommendations from the Bushfire Response and Recovery Review. Also, as has been discussed numerous times today, we've received a $10.8 million grant, which is secured from Transport for New South Wales to finalise designs and undertake enabling works for the proposed Moss Vale Bypass project. Ongoing advocacy will continue to secure funding for the construction aspect of the project. As a part of the people theme, during the quarter, Council hosted the 2024 Wingecarribee Youth Forum in June. The event focused on networking, leadership and enhancing communication skills. Additionally, the Youth Survey was launched to gather perspectives on youth on important community issues. Council also completed the installation of new signage for Bowral and Mittagong libraries in April to enhance wayfinding. The community feedback has been positive, highlighting the improved location and visibility of signage. Within the places theme, during the quarter, the reopening of Casburn Park in June, which was funded by a $2.5 million grant from the Bushfire Local Economic Recovery Package. The upgraded park features improved accessibility, 2 new playgrounds, a pump track, toilet amenities, amongst other enhancements. Also during the quarter, Council finalised the launch of the QR code surveys for open space facilities, allowing the community to provide instant feedback on maintenance standards. The initiatives enables Council to integrate targets on open space maintenance as requires. The environmental theme delivered during the quarter include 2 successful Aboriginal cultural burns in the excuse the pronunciation, apologies, in the Jibaganya Reserve in April 2024. The burns garnered positive feedback and strong community participation. In addition to this, Council launched a soft plastics recycling trial at the Resource Recovery Centre. Running until June 2025, the trial aims to find a sustainable solution in dealing with soft plastic waste. The outcome of this trial will be reviewed in the 24-25 financial year. Destination Southern Highlands achieved notable success with the Netflix Bridgerton in Bowral activation, featuring a global marketing campaign reaching an estimated 525 million people. The event, held in April, generated over $2.4 million in economic benefits. Channel 7 Sunrise broadcast from Bowral and Robertson further bolstered regional visibility. In addition to this, the Strategic Outcomes team developed a place plan for the Robertson Village Centre. Adopted by Council in 2024, the Robertson Place Plan brings together this multi-year project with positive community feedback on the process and outcomes. just going through some grants and again, just demonstrating the work that we're doing behind the scenes in advocating and seeking grant funding. The first one, as you're aware, we've had a number of grant debtors and we're working with the relevant funding bodies to bring that down. So at the start of the year, that was in excess of $15 million for the disaster recovery funding arrangement. Council officers are still working down to that to bring that down to 6.7, and that will continue on through the coming financial year. In terms of successful grant applications, majority made up by the Moss Vale Bypass at $10.8 million. Council received approximately $11.5 million in successful grant applications, and pending grant applications as at 30 June 2024 is just over $16.5 million in grant applications. Just some examples here of some of the successful, some of the smaller scale grants that we've received during the quarter here, working from the Circular Economy Workshops, Bus Shelters, Barradoo Cycleway Extension, Weeds Action Program, Disaster Adaptation Plan, and Inclusivity in Sports. In wrapping up with the last slide here, just 24 pending grant applications totaling $16.575 million. Again, just demonstrating to the community the work that we're doing in the background to try supplement a number of the work so we don't put financial pressure on ratepayers in getting a number of these initiatives delivered. Thank you.
Thanks. Look, when you read it, it's amazing what's going on in the place. But look, I'd like further information about the Wingecarribee Youth Forum. The youth strategy, which I read when we were dealing with the Mount Gibraltar, it leaves a lot to be desired. And I was told that this would begin to serve as an update on that policy. So if I could move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 94 of the business paper, adding the words further, comma, a report be presented to the August Council meeting on the outcomes and general discussion at the 2024 Wingecarribee Youth Forum. And I'd respectfully suggest next time that this come to council so councillors are informed of what is going on. There might be a plan to bring it later, I don't know, but I just think it's important. I declare that carried. General Manager, Lackey Park Master Plan update.
Mr Administrator, this item will be introduced by the Director, Service and Project Delivery, Ms Targa.
Thank you, Acting General Manager, Mr May. The purpose of this report is to seek Council's adoption of several parameters within which to complete a revision of the Lackey Park Master Plan. At the 18th of October 2023 Ordinary Council meeting, it was resolved that a review of the Lackey Park Regional Sporting Hub Master Plan is undertaken for the purpose of ensuring that the upgrade of Lackey Park to a multi-use site includes facilities of a more suitable size and scale, and for it to be decoupled from the Southern Highlands Indoor Sports Hub project. In March 2024, Council met with representatives of Cricket New South Wales and Highlands District Cricket Association. The association put forward a proposal for the Lackey Park Country Cricket Master Plan, with the site becoming a dedicated regional cricket facility. Unfortunately, three fundamental constraints have been identified with the proposal, that being planning barriers and the cost of the central pavilion, the stormwater channel restricting the developable area, and insufficient evidence of demand to provide confidence to the business plan. It is therefore recommended that the revision of the master plan continue with a focus on providing a quality community-level multi-purpose facility, and therefore for it to be completed with the following ingredients: formalisation and upgrade of the sporting fields, provision of sports fields lighting, renewal and upgrade of amenities and public toilets, and inclusion of a club room provision of upgraded cricket facilities, improved spectator seating, and no works to encroach on the existing drainage channel. These ingredients align with the feedback that we have received through the community consultation and will ensure that the site can be further enjoyed by all user groups into the future. Thank you.
Do you have any comment in relation to what the speakers had to say?
The only comments are like we met with Cricket New South Wales and the Highlands District Cricket Association, and they presented their proposal. There's no funding committed formally for that proposal. We discussed the planning barriers at that meeting, and also the rigor of the business case was discussed. So those barriers are there. In relation to the basketball proposal, the manager assets already addressed as part of the business cases that like we departed from that some time ago, and the community and recreational facilities strategy deals with that, and we are not revisiting that. So that's the only comments that I would make.
Mr. Nasser indicated that the council in the 10-year financial plan has considerable money allocated for Lackey Park.
In the long-term financial plan, I believe there's $1 million allocated, which can go to implementation of some of the ingredients that are in the master plan. You'd like to add to that, manage assets?
Yes, there's just a future project for the renewal of the sports field amenities building out there. Currently it's just in a deteriorated condition, and so just as part of our renewal program for council buildings, there's a $1 million project for the renewal of that facility.
What year do you recall?
I believe it'd be 26, 27 or 27, 28. I wouldn't be able to confirm off the top of my head, sorry.
I just think it's important for residents to understand that the asset management plans that have been prepared and are now adopted are coming into reality, and how 728 projects?
Yes, over 700 projects across the course of the 4-year program.
Yeah, and I think it's important that people who are running for council understand if they make a promise, they're going to take something out to fund it. And that's a difficult decision. Doesn't matter whether you're in Wingecarribee Council or Burke or anywhere. That's just the way the systems work. But look, having said that, I'm going to defer this matter to. So, you want to, based on what I heard and what I heard then, that the matter be deferred until the August meeting, to allow Cricket New South Wales the opportunity to provide further advice to council on the funding of its academy concept. Now, I understand that the August meeting is the first Wednesday, second? The 7th. It's the 7th of August. Can I suggest you just list this matter, and then if there is correspondence coming forward, we can then deal with it from there, rather than waiting. But I think it's important, given the expectations that have been built by them to the Highlands and Mossvale Cricket, that they be given the opportunity to let the council know exactly where they stand on this matter. Declare that carried. If I'm right, 9.9, but you indicated...
Yes.
9.9, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Acknowledgement to country policy. I missed one, did I?
Oh, 9.7, you called 9.7.
I did call 9.7, yeah. On page 226. Sean. Oh, I apologise. Look, I just wonder, what is the feasibility, or what's the practicality, or the affordability, or the reality of a turf wicket on Gerd Park?
Through you, Mr. May, Hilltop Northern Villages Cricket Club has long been advocating for the provision of a turf wicket at Gerd Park, so that it can be the home ground for their first and second grade matches. A turf wicket at this location is also supported by Hollands District Cricket Association, and letters of support have also been supplied from Cricket New South Wales and Judy Hannon MP, and therefore it has been included within the draft master plan. Like other turf wickets in the Shire, the provision of a turf wicket would be subject to grant funding and also an ongoing commitment from the club to maintain the turf wicket. If this cannot be provided, then Council's level of service would be provision of a standard synthetic wicket.
So in putting this out to exhibition, there is no expectation that the council will be maintaining a turf wicket?
Correct.
Thank you. Because they're expensive to very expensive to maintain. In relation to item 9.7, I'd move the officer's recommendation 1 and 2 as outlined on page 226 of the business paper and declare that carried. Now we move to 9.9, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Acknowledgement of Country.
Mr Administrator, I've been advised that not all the submissions that Council received were captured in the preparation of this report, and therefore I would recommend a new recommendation that the Council defer the report on the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Acknowledgement to Country Policy draft for exhibition until the 7th August 2024 ordinary meeting of Council to allow for the report to be updated to include all submissions received during the public exhibition period.
Declare that carried. 9.10, Public Arts Policy. My question relates to a number of people have asked me how come there are so many policies before the council. Some it's been going on for weeks now, or for months, years, reviewing all these policies. Can someone explain to me why a policy like this, when you're supposed to review all policies during a term of a council, this one hasn't been reviewed since 2010. Look, you can't answer the question. It's an unfair question, but I just want to draw attention to the fact of what's been inherited here, and how it is. People say there's a lot of items on the business paper. It's just a continuation of catch-up. You're a general manager of long-standing expertise, but you know they're supposed to happen in the term of a council. All policies should be reviewed. They seem to have dropped the ball here, but thankfully they're picking up on it. That's the reason why there's so many issues coming for policies. In relation to item 9.10, Public Art Policy, I'd move the officer's recommendation 1 and 2 on page 257 of the business paper and declare that carried. 9.13, Biosecurity Weed Control Program.
Mr Administrator, this report will be introduced by the Director Communities in Place, Mr McCabe.
Thank you, Acting
And
General.
I should also welcome you to the council chamber at your first meeting.
Thank you, Mr May. Just bear with me.
Thank you, Acting General Manager. Mr. May, the draft biosecurity weed control program recommended for adoption was developed during 2023 and 2024. Under the Biosecurity Act 2015, Council of a Local Control Authority to undertake various actions, including to develop, implement, coordinate and review weed control programs. Whilst Council has traditionally undertaken a weed control program, sorry, bear with me. Just bear with me. Whilst Council has traditionally undertaken a weed control program, the draft is Council's inaugural program for adoption. Prior to this, our approach was guided exclusively by the South East Regional Weed Management Plan. If adopted, the program will apply to the entire local government area, being 2,700 square kilometres. Consultation with Council's Climate Change and Environment Community Reference Panel occurred in September 2023 whilst developing the program, and again in May 2024 prior to public consultation, which occurred between 20 May and 17 June. Community consultation resulted in 7 submissions, including Jennifer Slattery's submission, who participated in today's public forum. Jennifer is also a member of Council's Climate Change and Environment Community Reference Panel. The program aligns with the Act, regulations, the New South Wales Species Plan and the South East Regional Strategic Weed Management Plan 2023 to 2027. In the public forum, Council's program was represented as not aligning to Goal 3 of the South East Regional Strategic Weed Management Plan, being effectively manage, reduce the impacts of widespread invasive species. My response to that is that many of the species listed on page 14 of the program are widespread invasive species. As this draft is Council's inaugural program, Council has not removed any species from being classified as priority weeds. The species listed in the program aligns with the weeds listed prioritised in the South East Regional Strategic Weed Management Plan. Various weed species are assessed at a regional and local level to determine their feasibility to manage, with a rating ranging from negligible to very high. Council's program prioritises 26 species for eradication or containment. Blackberry was assessed, well, blackberry was mentioned in the public forum. This was assessed as negligible in regards to the feasibility to manage the weed. Eradication and containment objectives are proposed for the program, whereas asset protection, which was again mentioned in the public forum, asset protection objectives prioritise key sites. Key sites are not proposed for this inaugural program, as Council has limited the resources to manage such a demanding program for our entire Shire. Hotspots will be serviced through the program. We currently receive $98,000 in state funding to administer a program. This represents approximately 50% of our current program costs. Alignment with the state and regional objectives and programs is a critical consideration for successful funding year on year. Adoption of this program will assist in Council requesting additional funding for the Shire. Thank you.
Now, are you saying we've given up on blackberry?
No, not at all, Mr. Administrator. We still service it, but I suppose an example would be if we're engaging with a landowner and various weeds are discussed on their site, we recommend that they be addressed, whether they're on the list or not. So we do focus on blackberry. However, it's deemed as one that is negligible when it's in regards to its feasibility to manage, i.e. it's hard to eradicate, I suppose, in summary.
Look, I'm about to start another village tour where, particularly out of the eastern areas, the concern isn't so much about blackberry on private property as blackberry on council road reserves. I might get you to come with me. You can take the fires. But anyhow, it's an issue. But if we're still managing, trying to do our best, well, that's all you can do. because you can't control the birds. Okay, in relation to item 9.13, I'd move the officer's recommendation 1 and 2 on page 290 of the business paper and declare that carried. 9.14, reflect reconciliation action plan. General Manager.
Mr Administrator, this item will also be introduced by Mr McCabe.
Thank you, Acting General Manager. Mr May, I would like to acknowledge the Gundungurra and Tharawal people as the traditional custodians of this land. The draft inaugural Reflect Reconciliation Action Plan recommended for adoption was developed with and has received conditional endorsement from Reconciliation Australia. The plan focuses on reconciliation and supporting the local Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community. Council's adopted 2024-2025 operational plan has a target measure for greater than 50% of the 13 actions proposed in the plan to be implemented or underway over the next 12 months. As the social, economic and cultural actions profiled within the plan are undertaken, further opportunities for external communication and consultation will arise with an aim to strengthen our relationships with First Nation communities. Thank you.
I'm going to move this recommendation but add another clause to it, or further. In response to correspondence from the New South Wales Department of Communities and Justice, a copy of the plan be forwarded. Now that is correspondence that was going between the administrator and that department, so you wouldn't have known about it. But this is an important document to forward to them. I declare that carried. We now move to 9.16, Community Assistance Scheme Grants. General Manager.
Mr Administrator, Mr McCabe will also introduce this item.
Thank you, Acting General Manager. Mr May, the Community Assistance Scheme 2024-2025 supports community-based projects led by local non-for-profit organisations. This report contains 5 recommendations supporting various local initiatives. The scheme was open for applications for over a month between April and May. 30 applications were received, with 25 applications recommended for support. The 5 applications not supported did not meet the eligibility criteria for the scheme. The applications recommended for support represent community-led initiatives in the arts and culture, community development, sport and recreation, environment and sustainability, with a cumulative value of $89,000. Subject to the outcomes of this meeting, a presentation evening for the community organisations is proposed for the 22nd of August. This is a great opportunity for various groups to profile their initiatives, connect with each other and with Council. Thank you.
I know I ask this every year, but this money is not paid until we have the audited financial statements for the previous year?
Correct.
Correct?
For you, yes, Mr.
In relation to item 9.16, Community Assistance Grants, I'd move the officer's recommendation 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 as outlined on page 319 of the business paper and declare that carried. 9.17, Christmas 2024 update.
Mr Administrator, Mr McCabe will introduce this item also.
Thank you, Acting General Manager. Mr May, this report contains 4 recommendations to support the Christmas spirit across the Shire. The program developed for 2024 was based on the success of the 2023 program and an evaluation thereafter. The program value is $100,000 and is to support various initiatives across the Shire. It is noted that the $25,000 recommended for the Festival of Lights is subject to the Festival of Lights Committee choosing to undertake the event, highlighting concerns with the cost to run the event. If that 25,000 is declined because the event is not run, it is proposed that that 25,000 be shared between the main town centres in relation to installations for Christmas. Thank you.
I can only applaud the work of the Festival of Lights people. They give an enormous number of hours. And have you met with them yet?
Mr. Administrator, no, I haven't, but other officers have recently, I'm aware.
Yeah, I'd suggest with the coordinator, you may want to meet with them to get a better feel for their commitment to what they do. Our meters tick, theirs don't. In relation to item 9.17, I'd move the officer's recommendation 1, 2, 3 and 4 as outlined on page 337 of the business paper and declare that carried. 9.18 I called. I'd best describe this smart watering meter update as a disappointing report. Water is, in my view, I wouldn't say too cheap, but it's such an important commodity that we have to manage it the best way we can. Do you want to say something? You're happy to let me move what I want to move. That the General Manager arranged for a detailed report on the provision of residential smart meters across the Shire to be presented in conjunction with the 2024-2025 draft budget. Such report to include timeline. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going off. Yeah, sorry, getting carried away. That the General Manager arrange for a detailed report on the provision of residential smart meters across the Shire to be presented in conjunction with the 2024/25 draft budget. I'm sorry, 25-26 budget. Thanks. It's a bit late for the other one, isn't it? 25-26 draft budget. Such a report to include timeline, financial implications, bracket, including funding by loans and amortisation, close bracket, and estimated water and financial savings to residents. Look, I know this is a challenging issue, but there aren't too many regional councils now that don't have smart meters, and it's not an easy thing to do, but this report is a bit of comedy capers too, about some of the meters that it says we put in. I think there's a lot of people who give advice on this, and I think Telstra now work with providers and through internet, etc., etc. It's not cheap and it's not easy, but I think it has to happen, and that's just not the easy way out that 9.18 suggests. So, you got no objection?
Mr. Mayor, the only comment would be that I believe domestic smart meters. They're a fantastic innovation. I do think they are just a high maturity development for a water utility authority. And so for us here at Winter Carriby, the focus I think is first on ensuring the sound resilience and effective operation of the water reticulation network itself, which really has been the focus over the last few years. And there is still maturity required for our systems, primarily through the implementation and refinement of the Technology One asset enterprise system, which includes the works management side of things as well, because it is a huge data component in terms of the data that you receive from smart meters, and without then the resources to manage that data, it's a whole lot of data that we aren't able to do much with. But I do agree, it's a fantastic innovation, and it's one that would be reasonable for us to have a timeline for implementation, even if it isn't for next year, but a timeline for how we're working towards it.
I'm not suggesting it happen next year. I'm just suggesting you get a timeline, and you might see if you can talk to the general manager in allowing you to go up to Tamworth. They've got huge water problems, but who's to say that with the way the global climate problems are, that we won't in the future. And I think it's water is a valuable asset. So I declare that carried. Um, 9.21, Project Reinvigorate, Mossvale Civic Centre internal refurbishment. I've got some questions on this one. This has a long. Sorry. This one has a long history, and in my view, it was one of the reasons why this council was ultimately dismissed by what happened in this building. But I don't understand how we issue a tender for 4.3 million, but we need to borrow 5.3, in effect, an extra million.
Through you, Mr. May. Included in that figure are the costs to date, so what we have expended to date on getting the tender documents to where we are now. It's the construction contract. It's also the construction contingency in dealing with a building that is old, and with the windows being only a provisional sum in the contract that is yet to be validated. There's also the management of the existing office furniture. It's the making our records digital so that we can free up space. There's a project management allowance in that, so it all adds up. So that's the total figure.
So you're saying the council's records aren't digitised?
Not all records.
Okay. What was... I remember the report of Smith, which I called for, because the council, in its submission for a CapEx, indicated that this was for occupational health and safety reasons. So you've had, in effect, had to start from scratch behind the public areas?
Correct. The documents for the Civic Centre refurbishment that was undertaken today didn't include for the public or the back of house areas, and did not include for the windows.
Well, you probably can't answer this. Mr. Smith couldn't, and I can't. How then, in their CapEx request, do they say it's for occupational health and safety?
Well, I cannot answer that question, Mr.
Yeah.
May.
Okay, so the extra money is for contingency, and in effect, the work you had to do to get a contract, to get a tender, and office furniture where necessary.
Correct. I can provide this cost breakup to include with the minutes if you would like.
I think it'd be worthwhile, because I think what 10 million was spent on this building, and I think the community was misled. And this is yet another legacy issue that's being tidied up. You'd be amazed, Acting General Manager, some of the issues that have confronted the General Manager in the last 3 years. Okay, in relation to, so that'll be attached to the minutes. In relation to item 9.21, I'd move the officer's recommendation 1, 2 and 3 as outlined on page 380 of the business paper and declare that carried. 9.22, Southern Villages Iconic Trail.
Mr Administrator, Ms Targa will also introduce this item.
Thank you, Acting General Manager, Mr May. The purpose of this report is to seek Council's endorsement of the Southern Villages Iconic Trail concept and the formation of an interagency working group so that we can progress the project. The Southern Villages Iconic Trail is a concept developed by the local community-based mountain biking organisation Highlands Trails. The proposal is for a 100-kilometre shared-use trail that would link the villages of Wingello, Bandanoon, Exeter, Fitzroy Falls and Kangaroo Valley. The proposed trail would be positioned as a long-distance town-to-town cliff escarpment ride, walk and/or run. It's a visionary project and would be a true asset for the region. A feasibility study has been completed on the proposal, which found that it would generate significant economic output as well as deliver fantastic livability outcomes through connecting villages and providing further nature-based recreation and tourism opportunities. It will be a complex project and will require a financial investment both for initial construction but also ongoing maintenance. Given the success of similar trails across the state, it's envisaged that these hurdles can be overcome through a collaborative approach with state government agencies. Given the multiple land tenures and the trail would cross, the formation of a working group and establishment of support by all parties is the first step in progressing this iconic trail. It's therefore recommended that Council endorse the project concept and the establishment of an interagency working group. Thank you.
Look, I think Highlands Trails are to be commended on this, and as you say, it's visionary, but unless people have vision, nothing happens. You need to champion projects. In relation to item 9.22, I'd move the officer's recommendation 1 and 2 as outlined on page 388 of the business paper and declare that carried. Southern Highlands Bridge Club, General Manager.
Mr Administrator, this item will be introduced by the Acting Director, Strategy and Resourcing, Mr Kuzmanovsky.
Thank you, Acting General Manager. On 19 June 2024, a report was presented to Council providing an update in relation to the termination of agreement for the lease club to the Southern Highlands Bridge Club. At that meeting, Council resolved that subject to completion of termination of agreement to lease by 30 June, the General Manager be authorised to reimburse the Bridge Club the sum of $25,000 and $25,032 for their out-of-pocket expenses. Following the Council meeting in June, the Bridge Club provided confirmation they would enter into a deed of release in exchange for the one-off payment. The deed of release was executed by both parties on the 25th of June, following which Council transferred the one-off payment of $25,032 to the Bridge Club on the 28th of June 2024. This report confirms that Council's resolution has been satisfied and the agreement for lease to the Bridge Club terminated. Thank you.
Thanks for that. In relation to item 9.25, Southern Highlands Bridge Club, I'd move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 401 of the business paper and declare it carried. 9.26, 3 Soma, or part 3 Soma Avenue, Bowral. Yes, I know why I called this. Is it fair to say that the council has been forced into compulsory acquisition because the council and the owner can't agree on what the purchase price of Part 3 Simona, or the Lot 4 in the DP is?
That is correct, yes.
Is it public information what the differential is?
I believe we may have tabled some valuations earlier on, yes.
So what is the council's advice?
So council's valuation came in at 141,000. That was done in October 2021, and the valuation on the other side of the property owner was approximately $450,000.
450k. And the council has tried to meet and settle this matter amicably?
I believe so. There have been numerous reports to council in the last 6 months outlining the attempts that council have made in trying to settle this outside of going to compulsory acquisition.
So this is still years away with compulsory acquisition. It'll take ages, won't it? Well,
It does, generally, yes, that's right. There is a process that we do need to follow, and gazetting, notifying various government agencies as well. So it is a process that will take at least 18 months, 2 years, you'd say.
well, what happens with the public facilities in the interim?
I think they continue as is at this point in time.
Closed?
Correct.
Well, I think the staff have done their best to satisfy this. We are dealing with public money. Okay, in relation to item 9.26, Part 3 Soma Avenue Barrel, I'd move the officer's recommendation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and declare that carried. Next one's me too, investments report. Don't worry. I only wanted to highlight the fact that in the last financial year, you are estimating that this council lost $336,500 by virtue of the slow payment by the state and federal governments of money owed to it under storm damage claims?
That is correct, yes.
In relation to item 9.29, investment report, I'd move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 429 of the business paper and declare that carried. The way I read mine, that's it. Well, thank you for sticking it out. I declare the meeting closed.